What is a kingdom worker? And am I one of those too? Hello there, I'm Chuck. I'm an educator with a new podcast this year because I have a new commute and a new job. And I'm just trying to sort out what in the world to do with all this extra time in the car. And that's what this podcast is. It's me in the car talking to myself, and you ride along shotgun every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just hearing me talk about school, parenting, my faith, pop culture, news, and how any and all of those things all interact together. So this question, what is a kingdom worker? I've gotten lots and lots of times from students this year because my screensaver on my computer is a background that my daughter made for me that just says kingdom worker on it. And so it's there as a reminder for myself, and it's also there as a conversation starter. So I never have this conversation during class. I don't even when it comes up, the screensaver, it's usually actually while I'm teaching, and that means I was talking too long, so it doesn't even really stay up there that often, but it's a thing that kids have seen, and kids that are interested and ask about it, when it's not class time, I answer those questions, and according to the law, when a kid asks you something that is age appropriate, you can answer that. So what I say typically in class about what is a kingdom worker, I mostly just say it has to do with Jesus and being a follower of Jesus. Here is the longer answer to that. So what in the world is a kingdom worker? Where did that come from? How am I going to read all this stuff in the car when I'm driving? Let me just say that I am doing this in the car, but for the parts where I'm going to be reading from my phone, I am completely stationary. So I'm bending the rules of the Drive Time Diary podcast today. But let me just read from you and let me tell you a little story. So my wife and I both also, besides having teenage children, volunteer at our church in the youth ministry. And so we interact with older teenage people also. And over the summer, we went to this conference called Christ in Youth Move Conference in Warrensburg, Missouri, and it was the whole family went. It was insanity, lots of craziness with a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old also being there with high school age kids, but they were troopers, and it was a really fun week and really formative. But the Christ in Youth Move Conference that happens every summer around the country, they invite students into, this is a quote now, they invite the students into kingdom work, and this is what they say on their website. What is kingdom work? We believe every follower of Jesus is called to be a kingdom worker. So here's where they define that. They're called to use their talents, abilities, and influence to further the gospel. CIY has called thousands of young people to do kingdom work. They are showing us that there are thousands of ways to do it. And then on their website, CIY.com, you can actually, it says hear more of their stories about what students and teenagers say about what that looks like. And there's an invitation at the end of the week. Besides the traditional, do you want to accept Jesus? Do you want to claim yourself as a follower of Jesus? Besides that kind of thing that happens a lot at Christian conferences or church camp, quote unquote, they also give 2 other different invitations, things to think through that I had not ever experienced, because this was my first time ever at this conference. When I was growing up here in North St. Louis County, friends of mine at school went to this same conference, and kids missed football camp or 2 days or so, the beginning of practice to go to this, actually, which was a testimony in itself. But besides that invitation just to be a Jesus follower, there's also moments where we invite kids into being kingdom workers. And do you want to start now, to use their definition on their website, using your talents, abilities, and influence to further the gospel? And then they also invite kids in to start making a decision about, do you even want to grow up and go into what we call full-time ministry, like people that work at a church. But that's that was a very rare decision amongst all of the hundreds of students that were there. But do you want to be a kingdom worker? That's a decision that anyone can make, no matter what their age. And so that's a thing that I started reflecting on over the summer, and I know my wife's been thinking about it also, and my 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old, and 13-year-old have also been thinking through that. And so the way that being a kingdom worker looks for my daughter, for the 8th grader, is different than the way that's going to look for her parents. But let me say a little more about that with my favorite robot, ChatGPT. I also put into there what is a kingdom worker to see what the internet says about that, what the body of computer knowledge says about it. Because I know also some of my students have just kind of Googled that as they've been sitting in class, and I think it has there's like a Episcopal relationship to what is a kingdom worker, something about Eastern Orthodox is maybe what that was instead. I haven't actually found that reference, but somebody Googled it in class and they asked me if I was an Eastern Orthodox Christian, I think. So it wasn't that. I'm a besides the episode where I outed myself as a quote hardcore Christian, the label that is maybe more accurate is quote non-denominational. The way that I just would say that in normal words is the most important thing to me is just following Jesus and doing the things that we see him do in the gospel accounts that are written down in the Bible, and just whatever we see in those gospel accounts that are most important to Jesus. Those are the things that are most important to me. But here's what ChatGPT says about being a kingdom worker. It says that kingdom workers value service and compassion. Some may see kingdom work as actively engaging in acts of service and compassion, mirroring the teachings of Jesus to love and serve others selflessly. This could involve volunteering, helping those in need, and fostering a sense of community. Where that fits in with how I view kingdom work, that service and compassion, that is part of my quote why, or my purpose behind teaching. Math is interesting, I guess, but that's not why I got into teaching. And that's I would continue teaching any subject and still think through helping those in need, serving selflessly, that kind of kingdom work, and stepping into any school setting and trying to further the gospel in legal, appropriate ways. So it doesn't have anything to do with math in that sense. But there is along with that, I think there is there's a Christian perspective that you need to take on math also. But that's maybe a whole other episode. Second thing ChatGPT says the internet says about a kingdom worker, sharing the gospel, that aligns a lot also with that CIY definition from their website. It says, for others, being a kingdom worker might involve actively spreading the message of Christianity and evangelizing. To align that with what the CIY website would say, you use those talents and influence to do this, to evangelize, to share the good news of Jesus and the freedom from sin and shame and the shackles of all of that baggage that we can't accept through that. Number 3, it says integrating faith into daily life. That is what this podcast does. This is not just about church stuff, or not just about teaching, or not just about parenting. I put all that together. It's really important to me, I've said before, to have all of those things kind of to fit into one integrated whole self, and authentic self, to use that word. So that's part of being a kingdom worker. Specifically what it said here on ChatGPT. Being a kingdom worker could involve integrating Christian principles into everyday life. This might mean making decisions guided by faith, treating others with kindness and respect, and being a positive influence in various spheres of your life, including your role as a math teacher. My robot knows me so well. Fourth thing out of 5 here, stewardship and responsibility. Some might emphasize the concept of stewardship, viewing kingdom work as responsibly managing the resources and talents given by God. That could extend to caring for the environment, using one's skills to contribute positively to society, and being responsible in personal and professional aspects. Yeah, that's a big part of it too. I am, politically, I have trouble fitting into a certain spot because I care deeply about the environment because of the perspective I have of that, of being a caretaker of creation. And then at the same time, also, there are other things that align. So that's kind of more being environmentally kind of aligns left, and then there are other parts of me that politically align a little more right, as far as like what do I do when I'm voting, I'm not really a one-issue voter, but like, what do I do with the pro-life issue, quote unquote? That makes it hard for me to choose a candidate when I have both of those kind of conflicting priorities. But it feels great for my work as a kingdom worker and how I view myself in relation to Creator God, and taking care of His world. And then the 5th thing it said is prayer and spiritual growth. Being a kingdom worker could also involve a strong emphasis on personal spiritual growth and a commitment to prayer. This perspective may focus on building a deep and personal relationship with God as a foundation for all actions and decisions. Also true. That's me every morning. I've talked about my morning routine on another episode, and you know from that episode that I wake up and kind of, because I'm a slow reader, that turns into at least 20 minutes of reading the Bible every day, and then spending some time on reflecting on that too, and reflecting right here and now on these podcasts also. So what's a kingdom worker? It's a person that uses their talents, influence, abilities to step into any situation where whatever work or scenario, setting that they happen to be in, and knowing that that's an opportunity to further the good news of Jesus. And sometimes that might look like saying things, that might look like speaking truth, preaching, quote unquote, and other times that might just look like your actions and the things that you do. And in the whole scheme of things, and around life, it's going to be both of those things. It's going to be words and actions. And that's really important. That's actually one of the trickiest things about being a kingdom worker at school, in my opinion, is to be a very good math teacher and to get kids that don't always want to come to school and learn math. Sometimes I have to be bad cop, I guess, and I hate doing that, and I'm least comfortable doing that. And when I'm bad cop, quote unquote, at home with my children who have had a relationship with me their whole lives, then that comes across differently than to a 15-year-old who has known me for 2 months, and that's a struggle of how to balance that. But word and deed is really important. Like, I can't, I've outed myself in the school community in a lot of ways as a Christian, and what goes along with that then is a higher standard of how I interact with students and with my coworkers, and I have to be open to criticism of Jesus wouldn't do that, and I just have to treat that in humility. And so that is the tricky part of being a kingdom worker. But it is what I enjoy doing, and it is super important to me, and that is what a kingdom worker is. So let me know what you think. Hit me on the X at chuckcbaker. Hit me on Instagram at Drytime Diary or at Mr. C. Baker for Math. Thanks for coming along on this drive. Thanks a lot for listening to this reflection and just reading of the internet about kingdom work. And we'll see you next time.